Hello, this is Dr. Ned Hallowell, and welcome to my podcast, Distraction. Today I have a very special guest. All my guests are special, but today's is especially special because James Ochoa and I go back a long way. We met way back in 1993. James and I have been working in the vineyards of ADHD for a long time. We're veterans, and I love the veterans that I've met along the way. And James was one of the first, and he's accumulated a lot of wisdom over those years. He lives down in Austin, Texas, married with 2 wonderful children and a terrific dog. And he has a book entitled Focused Forward, Navigating the Storms of Adult ADHD. Let me welcome you, James, and tell my listeners the story of how we met and what's happened since then. I'm so glad to have you on the show.
It's great, Ned. It's really, really good to talk with you on Distraction. I've enjoyed the podcast a lot, so I love this opportunity. And I've been in the field and working with ADHD since 1989, and by 1993, I was kind of tapped out and frustrated that what we had was behavior modification and medication for the most part. And so I spent my last $700 in savings to fly to New York City to the CHAD, International ADD Conference. And, Ned, you were the keynote speaker that year in 1993, and I was fascinated because you were the first person I had heard that began to use resilience and strength and neurological patterning to help understand people with the diagnosis of ADHD. And unannounced to you, certainly, it set me on a quest to really understand the neurological development of the mind along the lines of learning, teaching my clients about it who had ADHD. You know, the conundrum for me as a professional counselor was the mental and emotional stress that spun off of ADHD and really disrupted my clients in a chronic, almost illness, disruptive kind of way. And, you know, how do we learn to calm that? How do we resolve that issue so that individuals can reach their potential? They really can access their passions and their strengths. And that's a lot of what the book is about.
So say a little bit more about what you call emotional distress syndrome.
Happy to. It's so a big aspect of the book I wrote is, I think, what I would see as one of our biggest clinical or lifelong conundrums of the ADHD diagnosis is that the emotional and mental stress based on irritation, disorganization, lack of follow-through, procrastination, all those things have an emotional and mental weight to them that spin off of them. And if that is a chronic issue that never goes away, it can layer onto itself, and that layering begins to create a syndrome. And so what I call the emotional distress syndrome is the emotional and mental stress that spins off the diagnoses, many times untreated, but even ADHD treated has challenges with it many times. And it's that mental emotional stress that throws you out of balance. You're irritable, you're too short-tempered, you get confused easily, but it's very much like a low-grade post-traumatic stress disorder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, very much so. I agree with you. So with this complex and interesting syndrome, what's your approach to helping people who have it?
Well, you know, I start a lot, Ned, with education about the diagnoses from a neurological point of view of aspects of the mind that are potentially underactive or can cause where the challenge comes from. Because I think if I can take out that unknown of neurological understanding about what's going on, many individuals with great IQs begin to say, oh, wait a minute, this is a genetic, this is the developmental piece of this is where the challenge is.
Right.
And so it takes out anxiety of not knowing.
Right.
I think very quickly after that, I focus on the meditative aspect of learning a sense of mindfulness and meditation to slow your life down so that you can do what I would call is become curious and observant about your life.
Uh-huh.
And being curious and observant allows you to what I call hit a pause button.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And that pause button is one of the things that can be really challenging for us diagnosed with ADHD.
Right.
We just don't slow down.
Right, right. So you work toward mindfulness to help people strengthen their brakes. What else?
And then beyond that, what I've discovered is looking at personal strategies for how someone does something individually. So how does an individual, as you have said before, how are they organized enough? But how do I personalize my strategies so those routines become something that are personally meaningful to me and I feel connected to them? So if I put something, when I walk in the house and where I put my keys feels meaningful to me because it's on my favorite shelf or it's on my favorite piece of art, then I'm going to stay attached to it more. So personalizing strategies with individuals rather than recommending strategies is a real critical element to help people understand how to do that for themselves.
Personalizing it, that's a great way of putting it. Where does medication fit into your schema?
So within the realms of medication, I see medication as being a critical factor to help stabilize and help individuals with the diagnosis to more consistently focus and concentrate so that with medication, we could think about it as eyeglasses for the mind, right? It helps it to focus and concentrate consistently. And I have clients that absolutely rely on medication. It's made a huge difference of closing the gap. And I've had others who have been too medication sensitive, side effects, who have chosen to use personal strategies or potentially exercise or meditation.
Wouldn't you agree, though, that it's not either or? I mean, everyone should
absolutely
try everything. And
yes.
In my experience, about 80% of people will be able to use medication, benefit from it without side effects, and about 20% for whatever reason don't use medication. But sometimes people pose it as either or, and the ideal regimen is use everything, whatever works, as long as it's safe and it's legal. So, and the medication usually helps you be more effective in applying those strategies that you were talking about.
Exactly, because it keeps the mind engaged in a planning effort, a prioritizing effort. And so this is where I'm a big proponent of using medication to use it consistently because you have to plan and prioritize on the weekends as much as you do during the week. And so, and if you're building strategies with the medication being effectively helping you focus and concentrate, the strategies you're building are going to be more effective.
Yes.
It just makes, and that's very, and I refer to that, my own personal story in that space, Ned, that I write about in the book a little bit that I've almost 30-year drug and alcohol recovery with me, which is wonderful. But I've had to be careful with stimulants because of my addictive-related responses. But I currently use a lower dosage of like 18 milligrams of Concerta, which just really stabilizes my neurology so that I really do stay effective and more in balance. And it's been enormously effective. It doesn't activate my drug or alcohol-related recovery because there's so many people, right, that have this hyper reaction to the addictive process, whereas if the addictions are treated, particularly in this case with medication effectively with ADHD, then the addiction becomes a lot less of an issue.
Absolutely, absolutely. When you get the right medication, you don't have to use the wrong medication. Well, James, we have to say goodbye now, but it's wonderful to reconnect with you and an old friend and a veteran and it's wonderful to see the progress you've made and the field has made, and I'm so pleased that we were able to have you on.
Well, I really am very thankful, Ned, to be able to be on Distraction and continue to help those with ADHD to really feel much more empowered and kind of connected to their lives. And I really have always championed the work that you've done in the field. I just can't thank you enough to for having me on today. And
Thank you, James. So, Mr. James Ochoa, the author of Focused Forward, a real mensch of a guy and truly one of the people that matters in this world. Thank you so much, James.
All right, thanks, Ned. Y'all have a great day.
Take care. Bye-bye. That's it. If you have an issue, a question, or a suggestion, call us toll-free at 844-55-CONNECT or email at connect@distractionpodcast.com or go to our website at distractionpodcast.com. To hear more mini and full-length episodes, subscribe to Distraction on iTunes. And thanks so much for listening. Distraction is produced by Collisions, the podcast division of CRN International. Collisions, podcasts for curious people. Our producer is Sarah Gurton, our sound engineer is Scott Person, and our music was created by Mark Berman.